Okay, let's talk about Einstein's atheism. He wasn't a strong atheist, not like some of the atheists you find here on YouTube, but he was a weak atheist, and he was admittedly so. This is Einstein speaking in a letter to Guy A. Traynor, Jr., that is, in 1945. And it reads, "I received your letter on June 10th. I have never talked to a Jesuit priest in my life, and I am astonished by the audacity to tell such lies about me. From the viewpoint of a Jesuit priest, I am, of course, and have always been, an atheist." And taking a look at some other quotes of his, and you can see how, where his atheism is. This was to the same man, Guy A. Traynor, Jr., in 1949. "I have repeatedly said that, in my opinion, the idea of a personal God is a childlike one. You may call me an agnostic, but I do not share the crusading spirit of the professional atheist whose fervor is mostly due to the painful act of liberation from the fetters of religious indoctrination received in youth. I prefer an attitude of humility corresponding to the weakness of our intellectual understanding of nature and of our own being." Now, in this one, he seems far more agnostic. And that's what he means by "you may call me agnostic." But what he's saying really, at least in my opinion I should say, is that even though he does not crusade against religion, as a professional atheist would, he is not removed from that. He is still a person that does not believe in the existence of a deity, so to speak. He has another one that is a quote from him in 1954, and it states, "It was of course a lie what you read about my religious convictions. A lie which is being systematically repeated. I do not believe in a personal God and have never denied this, but have expressed it clearly. If something is in me which can be called religious, then it is the unbounded admiration for the structure of the world, so far as science can reveal it." That is, again, in my opinion, the words of a naturalistic atheist. Someone who believes that the structure of this world is, by its own nature, and by how science can reveal it to us, a religious thing. So in this sense, he could almost be called a pantheist, that God is in everything, but he never indicates a God with any kind of intellect. As a matter of fact, he also, there's another quote here, in how he deals with the concept of an omnipotent God. In other words, a God that's all-powerful. And it's actually a wonderful critique of the God of most theists. And it actually kind of indicates how such a God is illogical and could not possibly exist because it contradicts itself. If this being is omnipotent, then every occurrence, including every human action, every human thought, and every human feeling and aspiration, is also his work. How is it possible to think of holding men responsible for their deeds and thoughts before such an almighty being? In giving out punishment and rewards, he would, to a certain extent, be passing judgment on himself. How can this be combined with the goodness and righteousness ascribed to him?" That was quoted from 1955. That was quoted from 1950, out of his book, Out of My Later Years. Now, here's another interesting one. Just a short bit on morality. This is from The Human Side, a book edited by Helen Dukas and Banish Hoffman, and Einstein states, "I do not believe in immorality of the individual, and I consider ethics to be an exclusively human concern with no superhuman authority behind it." Here's another quote that indicates his idea of religious feelings versus mysticism. I don't have a date on this one, so I'm sorry. And without a place where it's quoted from, you'll have to check on that yourself to make sure it's authentic. But assuming it is, "What I see in nature is a magnificent structure that we can comprehend only very imperfectly, and that must fill a thinking person with a feeling of humility. This is genuinely religious feeling that has nothing to do with mysticism." And here's another one that I like. He states, "My deep religiosity found an abrupt ending at the age of 12 through the reading of popular scientific books." Again, no date or specific paper that was written in, so you'd have to double check on the authenticity of that one as well. As far as I can tell, it is authentic, but always do your own checking. Now, here's another quite telling quote from him. Again, it's without date, or you'll have to again check his authenticity on your own. "The idea of a being who interferes with the sequence of events in the world is absolutely impossible." Another good example of his religious ideas, and again an indication of atheism, is he states, "I believe in Spinoza's God, who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of what exists, not in a God who concerns himself with the fates and actions of human beings." Here's another one, which actually may indicate religious philosophy he felt closest to. Okay. Dealing with this quote, "The religion of the future will be a cosmic religion. It should transcend a personal God and avoid dogma and theology. Covering both the natural and the spiritual, it should be based on a religious sense arising from the experience of all things natural, and spiritual as a meaningful unity. Buddhism answers this description. If there is any religion that could cope with modern scientific needs, it would be Buddhism." That's an interesting one there. Einstein wasn't a theist. He wasn't a deist. He could perchance be a pantheist. But his view as to the religious aspects of science, or basically making science his religion, points to a naturalism, and hence a type of atheism, though very weak, still there. So again, this is my opinion. I do encourage anyone watching this to do further research on their own. But he was so poetic and so metaphoric in many of his comments that it can be somewhat difficult to understand what he's saying, what he's really implying. Do look into them.